The curtains in the bridal suite were ivory, heavy and floor-length and pulled shut against the October cold. Someone had scattered rose petals on the bed. Someone had folded 2 towels into the shape of swans and placed them on the pillows, necks curved toward each other like a promise. The room smelled like jasmine and new linen. Everything was arranged for something beautiful to begin. I sat on the edge of that bed in my wedding dress, 23 years old, and felt the walls close in. My name is Noor. I had married Ferris that afternoon in front of 240 guests. My mother had cried. His mother had smiled with her whole face. The music played, and the cameras flashed, and I danced with my father, who whispered that he was proud of me. Everyone said it was perfect. Everyone said I looked like I was glowing. But underneath the beading and the tulle and the careful makeup, I was shaking. Not from joy. From something I had carried alone for over a year. I was not a virgin. Not because of recklessness. Not because I didn't care. But because life doesn't always follow the order people draw for it. When I was 21, I had been in a relationship with a man named Samir. We were together for 2 years. He told me he would marry me. I believe him the way you believe someone when you're young, and the world still feels like it keeps its promises. One night, slowly, gently, with trust one had never given anyone, I gave him something I had been taught my entire life to guard. 3 months later, he left. No reason that made sense. No fight. Just a slow pulling away, then silence. He moved to another city for work. Changed his number eventually. Disappeared the way people do, when they've already decided you don't matter anymore. I grieved him quietly. My mother never knew. My sisters never knew. I folded that chapter into the smallest version of itself and tucked it somewhere deep, and I kept living. Then I met Ferris. He was kind in a way that didn't demand attention. He opened doors. He remembered small things I said weeks after I'd said them. He brought my mother flowers the first time he visited. He looked at me when I spoke like what I was saying was the most important thing in the room. I didn't fall in love with him all at once. It happened slowly, like light filling a room at dawn. And when he proposed, I said yes with my whole heart. But the whole time, underneath everything, there was a door I hadn't opened. A truth I hadn't spoken. And as the wedding got closer, that door started rattling. I thought about telling him. I rehearsed it in my head 100 times. In the car. In the shower. While lying awake at 3 a.m. I would start the sentence in my mind. Ferris, there's something I need to tell you. And then I would see his face. His trusting, steady face. And the words would collapse before they reached my mouth. I told myself it didn't matter. That it was my past, my body, my life before him. I told myself he loved me for who I was, not for what I had or hadn't done. And part of me believed that. But another part, the part shaped by every auntie's whisper, every cultural sermon, every joke made at someone else's expense, that part told me I was ruined. That I had failed at the one thing I was supposed to protect. That if he found out, everything would fall apart. So I said nothing. And now I was sitting on the edge of a hotel bed with rose petals pressed against my thigh, and Ferris was in the bathroom, and the night was here. He came out in a white t-shirt and loose pants, smiling softly, a little nervous himself. He sat beside me, took my hand, said, "We don't have to rush anything." That sentence almost broke me, because it was kind, and I didn't feel I deserved kindness. He kissed me gently. I kissed him back. And the night continued the way wedding nights do, with tenderness and awkwardness and the strange vulnerability of being fully seen by someone for the first time. Except I had been seen before. And I carried that knowledge like a stone in my chest. Ferris didn't say anything that night. He didn't notice anything, or if he did, he didn't show it. He held me afterward and whispered that he was happy. I whispered it back. And I meant it mostly. But there was a thin wall of glass between us now, and I had built it myself. The days after the wedding were warm and full. We moved into our apartment. I arranged the kitchen the way my mother had taught me. He hung shelves and played music too loud and burned eggs on Sunday mornings. We laughed. We settled. It should have been the happiest time of my life. but the secret sat in every room with us. It sat at the dinner table. It sat on the couch while we watched television. It lay between us in bed at night when he fell asleep and I stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if love built on silence could survive. Sometimes he would say something innocent, a comment about trust or honesty, or how he admired that we had no walls between us, and I would feel my stomach turn. Not because he was cruel, because he was sincere, and I was not giving him the same thing back. One evening, about 3 months into the marriage, his cousin came to visit. They sat in the living room while I made tea. I could hear them talking through the thin wall. His cousin told a story about a man in their town who had discovered, years into his marriage, that his wife had been with someone before him. The way his cousin told it, laughing, disgusted, shaking his head, made me set the teapot down because my hands wouldn't stop trembling. Ferris didn't laugh. I heard him say, quietly, "That's between them." 3 words. That's between them. I leaned against the kitchen counter and cried without making a sound. That night, after his cousin left, I sat on the bedroom floor and told myself I had 2 choices. I could carry this forever, or I could trust the man I married. Sometimes the bravest thing a woman can do is not keeping a secret. It's deciding she deserves to be loved without conditions. I waited until the next evening. He was reading on the couch. The apartment was quiet. I sat across from him and said his name, and something in my voice made him put the book down. I told him everything. Slowly. Without excuses. Without crying at first. I told him about Samir. About being young and trusting and wrong. About the guilt that followed. About the silence I had kept and the fear I had carried into our marriage. When I finished, the room was so still I could hear the refrigerator humming in the kitchen. Ferris didn't speak for a long time. He looked at the floor. He rubbed his hands together slowly, the way he did when he was thinking through something heavy. I watched his face and tried to read it, but it was closed to me in a way it had never been before. Then he looked up. "Why didn't you tell me before the wedding?" His voice wasn't angry. It was hurt. And that was worse. "Because I was afraid you wouldn't marry me," I said. He closed his eyes, breathed out, nodded once, like he was absorbing something that would take longer than one night to process. "I need to think," he said. He slept in the living room that night. I lay in our bed alone, staring at the ceiling again, except this time the glass wall was shattered and I didn't know what was on the other side. 2 days passed. We moved around each other carefully, politely, like strangers sharing a waiting room. He didn't yell. He didn't insult me. He didn't call his mother or tell anyone. He just went quiet, and the quiet was enormous. On the 3rd evening, he came into the kitchen where I was washing dishes. He stood behind me and didn't say anything for a moment. Then he said, "I'm not angry about what happened before me. That was your life. You were allowed to live it." I turned off the water. "I'm hurt that you didn't trust me with it," he said. "That's what I've been sitting with." I turned to face him. His eyes were red. He had been carrying something too. "I thought you would leave," I whispered. "I know," he said. "And that tells me something about the world you grew up in. Not about who you are." He stepped closer, took my hands. They were still wet from the sink. "I married you, Noor. Not a version of you. Not a story about you. You." I broke then. Quietly, completely, the way you break when someone sees the worst thing you believe about yourself and doesn't look away. He held me in that kitchen for a long time. The dishes sat in the sink. The light above us flickered once and steadied. And something between us, something that had been fractured since the night I chose silence over trust, began to mend. Not perfectly, not all at once, but honestly, we never spoke about it in those exact terms again. But something shifted. I stopped flinching when he talked about honesty. He stopped assuming there were no walls left to find. We became more careful with each other, not fragile, but deliberate. The way you hold something you now understand could have been lost. I won't say the world changed. His cousin still told the same kinds of stories. His mother still made comments about purity at family dinners, not knowing she was talking about me. The culture didn't soften overnight. But inside our apartment, inside the small kingdom we were building together, The rules were ours. I learned something that year that I carry with me still. Shame only has power when it lives in silence. The moment you speak it out loud, it starts to lose its shape. It doesn't disappear, but it shrinks. It becomes something you once carried instead of something that carries you. And what happens to a girl who is not a virgin on her wedding night? The same thing that happens to anyone standing at the edge of being fully known. She waits. She holds her breath. And if she's lucky, not because luck is fair, but because sometimes love is braver than fear, she finds out that the person beside her was never looking for perfection. They were looking for her. The apartment is quiet tonight. Ferris is reading on the couch again. I'm writing this from the kitchen table, where the light still flickers sometimes and then steadies. We are not a perfect story, but we are an honest one. And I think, in the end, that's the only kind worth telling.